Millions of years before humans even built the pyramids, the Aeldari had solved the basic math of survival. Their technology was so advanced, it eliminated disease, scarcity, and manual labor entirely. They were the undisputed apex predators of the Milky Way, ruling a galaxy-spanning empire without a single credible rival. But a society with no struggles and no external threats faces a unique problem: severe boredom. Without the need to work or fight, the Aeldari turned their massive intellects and lifespans entirely inward. They dedicated themselves to experiencing every possible sensation, pushing the boundaries of pleasure and excess to extremes no human mind could process. This diagram illustrates a biological flaw that made their indulgence lethal. The top plane represents physical reality, or real space. The fluid plane below it is the immaterium, a parallel dimension of pure psychic energy. Every Aeldari possessed a potent, innate psychic connection, tying their mind directly to this lower realm. Aeldari emotions carried physical weight. Because of their psychic link, every extreme act of pleasure, agony, or obsession generated literal psychic runoff that would bleed downward into the immaterium. For thousands of years, trillions of Aeldari pushed themselves into increasingly sadistic and hedonistic extremes. All that psychic runoff from their torture and pleasure cults pooled together in the dimension below, where it slowly coalesced into a singular, pulsing mass. Back in physical reality, the core Aeldari worlds devolved into absolute, violent madness. Citizens roamed crumbling plazas as drug-addled maniacs, engaging in blood-soaked revelries while their society collapsed completely around them. The Aeldari engineered a psychological weapon of mass destruction that their own biology made impossible to diffuse. In the early 30th millennium, that embryonic mass of pooled obsession finally achieved full sentience. The entity took its first breath, and Slaanesh awoke. That first inhalation instantaneously ripped the souls from trillions of Aeldari bodies across the thousands of core worlds of their apex civilization. Almost the entire population dropped dead in a single heartbeat. The destruction in the immaterium was just as absolute. Slaanesh immediately hunted down the ancient Aeldari Pantheon, consuming their mythological gods one by one and absorbing their immense power. The Aeldari met their end through their own psychic reflection, an omnipotent predator made in their own image that extinguished their empire in an instant. The death of the species was only the spiritual cost. Slaanesh's birth also left a permanent, bleeding scar on the physical universe. The sheer violence of the psychic implosion physically tore the boundary between physical reality and the immaterium wide open at the empire's epicenter. This map shows the original borders of the Aeldari Empire in the galaxy's northwest quadrant. When the boundary shattered, it created what is now called the Eye of Terror, a permanent overlap where the chaotic energy of the immaterium flows freely into real space. The rift expanded to nearly 20,000 light-years across, entirely consuming the core worlds and creating a massive, inescapable navigational hazard. The fall transformed the Milky Way into a fractured landscape, trading a thriving empire for a 20,000 light-year breach in reality where physical laws no longer apply. A small fraction of the population did survive the initial blast, primarily those hiding deep within a labyrinth of pocket dimensions known as the Webway. But the inhabitants of the dark city of Commorragh soon realized they were still cursed. This diagram outlines what was happening to them. Even in hiding, Slaanesh was slowly and constantly draining their souls away, pulling their life force toward the immaterium. To stave off the consumption of their souls, these survivors, now known as the Drukhari, discovered a horrific workaround. They realized they could replenish their withering essence by inflicting extreme pain and terror on other sentient beings. By engaging in this act of psychic vampirism, the Drukhari absorb the raw suffering of their victims. As you can see, this external energy refills their own draining life force, effectively keeping death at bay. To survive the predator they created, the Drukhari became the very thing that birthed it, eternal monsters feeding on the pain of others. There was one final macroeconomic consequence to Slaanesh's birth. The immense psychic shockwave blew away the localized warp storms isolating the galaxy for millennia. With interstellar travel routes suddenly clear and navigable, the Emperor of Mankind had the exact opening needed to launch his great crusade from Terra. Humanity aggressively expanded outward, spreading across the stars to fill the massive power vacuum left by the dead Aeldari Empire. The Aeldari's collapse cleared the path for human dominion, leaving the Imperium to inherit a permanently scarred and hostile